You're listening to the Road to Wisdom podcast, weaving stories told by wonderful minds about all things motherhood, health, intimacy, politics, nature, and everything in between.
Join us on an adventure discovering unique experiences that we can learn from to enhance the ways in which we live.
We are your hosts, Chloe
and Keshia. Welcome everyone to the Road to Wisdom podcast. Today we have Jinti back in the studio. We are recording at the beautiful Cellar Valley Estate, which it's been really nice. It's so stunning out here.
So nice. I've actually been waiting for that python to come rolling in and say good day, but
it has like the sound of the creek just like running through the background. Anyway, it's very, very relaxing. And we've roped Jinti out here to chat big families with us because you guys send in all the questions about big families. And so what better way to answer said questions?
We feel qualified. We have 14 kids between us. So I think that qualifies us to talk on what it's like to have a big family.
We're experts.
Experts
on big families. But also Jinti is one of five.
Six.
Yeah.
One of six.
My mum had 6 babies.
Yeah.
So I had a big family.
You had a big family.
Because I thought she was absolutely crazy after I had my first baby. I was like, Mum, you did that 6 times. Like, what on earth? Oh. And now I'm like, I get it. It's a slippery slope. It just happens.
Okay, guys, we are interrupting this episode today for a quick little game of which phase of your cycle are you in? Keshia is going to guess what phase of the cycle I'm in.
Yep.
And I'm going to tell her if she's right or wrong.
Well, Chloe, you're looking absolutely glowing. So I would only assume that you're in your ovulatory phase.
Wrong. I'm in my follicular phase, which usually I'm not looking so glowy. But I have to say, my religious In Bloom skincare routine every morning just pumps me up. Like I give a little massage, put a little Kakadu plum on. I'm actually addicted to Hydrosol. So I swear to God, it can elevate you 100 times. So I love it. Can't live without it.
This is basically all I use on my face at the moment. It is so beautiful. And this is my skincare routine before filming one of these podcasts. So I love it. I'm so excited to be offering all our viewers 15% off when you use the Road to Wisdom at checkout. We will link and put our code in the show notes. Apparently like tattoos. Like you get hooked.
I don't know if you regret them as much though.
I'm sure there are moments. I
regret mine.
I regret all my tattoos.
Yeah, same.
Oh my God. No, not like tattoos then. No.
I mean, it's easy to just get them though.
Yeah.
You just one day wake up. Like I actually did it last night. Brent and I were driving. Oh, we were on the boat on Father's Day and I was like looking at all of our kids in the front of the boat and I looked at him, I was like, we have so many kids. I look at them all. We did that. How? I was genuinely like, what the heck? That's all our stuff.
Chris
at the
and
front
I do that all the time, especially if it's a bit chaotic or something. There'll be like the 4 kids and we just look at each other and we're like, there's like, look at us. There's so many of us. Like this started off just the 2 of us. And now I'm like, there's like 4 other people in the house now.
Yeah. But also I'm like when you talk about numbers of kids, I feel like it's always, oh my God, there's so many. But at the same time, I'm like, there isn't actually, it doesn't feel like it's that much. Like when we're all together, I'm like it doesn't feel too big. It's just when I bring my attention to the number of people in my house that is like, holy shit, did they all come out of me?
But also when you like have to upgrade to a multivan and you like see them pouring out at like wherever you're going, you do also get a swift reminder of how many
I laughed when I drove in and the only cars I spotted were the 2 multivans and I was like, that's got to be them. They're the mum bands.
There's no way that I'm in the wrong place. It's 2 mum bands.
Oh my gosh. Oh. And out of our 14 kids, we do have 3
joining us today.
sweetheart. And Jinti's baby's only 5 weeks old. Look at
No,
that.
nearly 8.
Oh, sorry, 8 weeks old.
No. We
don't
tried to
even
figure
know.
this out before.
Yeah, I think nearly 8. The other day I told someone she was a month old. And then I was thinking about it afterwards and I was writing something and stating like her age. So I got out my calendar and she was over 7 weeks old. And I just told someone she was a month old. I was like, how?
This is also a symptom of a big family. You just don't
Yeah.
really know stuff anymore.
No. How much do like the milestones just melt away? Like, are you worried about milestones or anything? Like, I'm just like, are they doing, like every now and then I'll just be like, oh, is she doing the things that she's meant to be doing? And then I just don't even remember what those things are and completely move on. So like when you've got that one, you're just like hanging off the milestones. Like,
Yeah.
like 4 months should be rolling now or whatever it is, should be eating now, should be smiling now, should be, but I feel like you just forget all of that and you're just like, So we have Jinti in to chat big families with us today. Jinti, we did put a little shout out to our audience for some questions on big families. And I think the one that I received the most was, how do you get your partner on board when you want more kids? So Jinti, how do you get your partner on board when you want more kids?
I don't think it was something that I really have experienced getting Chris on board, in that it was strange though, because we never spoke about having kids when we had our first. We
Yeah.
weren't like planning some big family. I think I knew we would have kids one day. Like I felt like, oh, he's my person. But we were just at a different stage of our life. So our first was pretty much like a surprise. But that's just how it needed to be for us. So it wasn't, all this planning, and then it was just like we knew we'd have more kids, so we had more. But I do think for him it's a little different. Like I can be very with my cycle, just be like, oh, I want a baby so bad, and he's more logistical, thinking, well, like
How am I going to provide
like
for that?
exactly,
Yeah.
and just looking at it from a different angle. But I feel like if you really keep some sort of like intimacy in your relationship, it can feel hard not to have
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I think that like if your relationship is like really smooth sailing, or you guys have the tools to navigate difficult circumstances, another child's not going to be, oh, do you mind? Yeah, another child's not going to be this big thing, especially if you already have children. Like it's just going to be a natural follow on. But my biggest thing, because I definitely ran into this roadblock with Togga, going from 3 to 4, like we were done at 3, and I was like, then when Rue came up to a certain age, I was like, if we're gonna have another one, we've got to do it now. Like I'm getting old. Like we gotta and also like I don't want the gaps to be too big. And he was just like, what is this conversation? Like we're not having another baby. And I'm like, I think I need another baby. Like I want another baby. Like I had this real urge before Poet, and it took me like 6 months to kind of get him on board with that. So I think the biggest one was like I will always regret not having another baby. Like there will always be, like if we stop now, there will be like with the way I'm feeling right now, I'm like
right
there
now?
will be this longing. Oh no. When I was pregnant, before I was pregnant with Poet, this is how I felt. Let's
like,
clarify that, because I am so very done right now. But when it was, when I felt Poet and I really wanted her, I was like, if we stop now, I'm always going to, I will regret not having that baby. Like I will always wonder, and I will always, but there is no way you're going, like we already have 3 kids. There's no way you're going to regret having a 4th child. Like there's just no, you're not like, and she's awesome. And like every one of your own kids is always awesome. So like, unless they're like a murderer, but you don't know that until later. So you can't regret it early.
I reckon if I was actually to give some sort of advice to a woman who was in a situation who wanted another baby and was like, my husband is really against the idea of it, I would just state what I wanted, but in a positive way. Like I would love to have another baby of yours or something, but not being like, well, let's get into all the logistics of it and stuff.
Yeah.
You can just be like, that's what I would say. Like, just
like-
freely express your
yes,
desire, because
yeah.
a man like wants to provide that and give you that, and don't put it on him to be like, well, he can figure it. He needs to change. He needs to order this. Just let your desire be known to the world, and like let him fulfill it.
Such a good point, because I feel like that is the pinnacle of like the masculine and feminine. And so like if you're nagging at him, being like, I don't know the baby, I don't know the baby, he's gonna be like, ew.
I have to do it. Like it's,
Like,
and then
oh,
he feels.
God, it's such a big momentous task
Yeah.
almost that just like doesn't really turn him on or doesn't really like, he doesn't really want that. But yeah, I totally agree with that. It's just like, oh, I would love another baby. That would be,
Yeah.
imagine how magical that would be.
I'd
And,
love
like,
to just have sex with you all the time. Like if you phrased it that way, I'm sure you're not going to get a no. Like I just want to, let's just have sex, like really amazing orgasmic sex all of the time
when I'm ovulating.
when I'm ovulating.
At this specific time.
This very specific time. But look, you can't, I'm sure you wouldn't get a no then, hopefully.
Gosh, maybe you just, maybe there's some other work you got to
This-
maybe potentially have to sort out if you're at that roadblock of.
Just like a little like FYI for everyone listening, we've just come back off, like we're off the back of a conversation with Taylor Clark Johnson, who's a sexologist, and we were just talking sex. So if a lot of that finds its way into this conversation, apologies, but
It's relevant.
yeah,
how you make a
absolutely.
baby.
We're talking
How you
about
make a big
baby.
family.
But
Yeah.
isn't it? I think that's so interesting, because we do disconnect sex from babies and parenting and motherhood and all of that. And it's like, well, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think it makes it drastically easier to parents when you are having great sex, which is what we also just talked about too. Like if that becomes a non-existent thing, then I don't see how I feel like a man potentially would see it as just like another child to take care of, as opposed to like this magical
A creation of our love.
Yeah.
And it's an embodiment, literally, of the love we have for each other in a certain moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
So if you want to have easy parenting, maybe just have great sex and multiple children.
absolutely.
I don't know.
Just keep.
But that answers the question as well. I think if you want to have more babies with your partner, like work on creating like a beautiful sex life.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's no man that's going to be against that. So it's not thinking like, can we have another baby? But it's just like, how can I like be a more loving partner?
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. I like that.
It's definitely.
I take back my ultimatum of you will never regret it, but I will. That's not going to work in the bedroom.
I know, but I know that feeling as well of just feeling like there's a baby there. You would always have to like grieve it in a way. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess that's that question answered. Have we could just go and talk about
could just
great
be
sex
talk-
lives all the
talk
time.
about that. Well, I mean, it's a good segue into keeping your sex life alive with multiple children, because people always talk about like, oh my God, it must be just so hectic, and like, do you know, like most people don't sleep in
I
the
hear a
same
lot of
beds, and,
excuses.
like,
Yeah,
there's-
like, oh, we've always got a baby in our bed. And I'm like, but you see all these women with many children. They didn't, like, their kids are still in bed. Like, they've got young children and they're pregnant again. Like, they're finding ways to have sex. It's very clear and obvious.
you said this to me before. I'm like, I just don't feel like you get
But you
find
know,
a way. You find a place.
yeah, like I think that you can't use like we don't have our bed to ourselves. Like maybe not for like really kinky sex, you can't do that. But like sex in general can still be had even if you have other little people sleeping in your bed. You don't have to do it on top of them. Like there's lots of ways to incorporate lovemaking into your life without it being specifically
I think
in the bed
not
with
even
your
just
children.
the sex part, but the intimacy
Yes.
part, because the part that is difficult is the intimacy. It's like, yeah, you can have sex, but to have the different type of
You want to
like,
have it.
yeah,
you want to
like
have
that-
it's different.
Yeah, do you want to? Because like often we are constantly coming from a place of give, and we are responsible for filling ourselves up and doing all that stuff. So yeah, it's whether we feel like it or want it or have a libido, or, you know, and how do you do that when you're serving 5 children and a partner and a household and maybe even a job and, you know, or like, you know, you're serving your community in some way, you know, like that's probably where it's rooted and kind of comes from.
Yeah.
But
I think, actually, no, Jinti, take the floor on this one.
I was just thinking as you're talking, I feel like having all of the children and stuff like that is such a perfect excuse when you don't want to have sex. But if you want to have sex, you'll find a way. And it's not about the sex, exactly like what you said. It's about the intimacy, because I think if you have this connection together, sex comes from that. But when you're like don't have this like this connection or the intimacy, you don't want the sex, obviously. I feel like women want that like emotional connection in a way, and otherwise sex feels like a chore. And I also feel like I've had sex where I feel like, you know, at different times in our relationship where it was draining, but I'm like, now I know how energizing it can be. So I think it depends on the type of sex that you're having as well, because if it's like if it's going to be draining, if you're just here to take from me in some way, then like I'm not that interested. But if you're here like to give and I'm open to receiving, it can be so energizing. And then it's just like a whole different do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you feel better in your body. Like I can definitely relate to that on the like having sex, because there's a need there for him, and like I feel like I need to fulfill that need, opposed to having sex because I am feeling so connected and drawn towards you, and I just want to like connect in that way as well. Like it's just the progression of feeling desired by you, and also feeling like you're filling my cup with that. So I don't know.
I think it just has to be a priority. Like it's easy to slip away from it. Like it's easy, like, oh, well, you've got all the kids in that bed and you're here and, you know, like you fall asleep with the baby, or like I fall asleep putting baby to sleep, or like, you know, you're tired and you like there are a million excuses or reasons that, you know, and you're not probably, it's a lot of it is valid too. So I do want to validate that it is fucking exhausting breastfeeding all day, every day, being touched out, not wanting to be grabbed because it feels like, ugh, get away from me. Like there is all of that too. Like that is super valid. But I think if you're like seeking, then you will find it if you actually prioritize the intimacy aspect of it.
I think as well, if I'm in a state of just like resenting or just being in the thick of it and like I cannot be appreciative. Like if I can look at my partner and actually appreciate all that he's doing and things like that, then it's going to be a turn on towards him. But if I'm like criticizing him and blaming him and just in that state, you know, it's so easy to go there. I'll go there like multiple times every day. Like I'm like, oh. But if I can sort of shift out of that and just, I don't know, then I can like look at him in a new light. I feel like sometimes that's my part in it, just to see him as the man I want him to be, and he becomes it in a way. Like I'll if I'm looking for it, I'll find it, exactly what you said. And yeah, I feel like sometimes that's my role. Like his role is he's just, if he's seen as like in a loving way, you know, from me, and he feels my openness or to him, like he nearly always wants to have sex. Like it's like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
he's responsive to that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I feel like I've got a lot of people around me at the moment in like a bit of a relationship, like lull or, for lack of a better word, crisis. And I can so relate to that in terms of like me and Toga have been in that just recently as well. And now we're in a really good spot. And so I can see like from what hindsight that like when I'm in that phase he's actually still doing all the same things. So like he hasn't changed at all. But when we're in this thing where like we're kind of boiling at each other and we're resenting each other, we're still doing all the things that right now we're like, we love each other, you know, but like it's like you get into this thing of just like feeling angry and therefore like pointing out all of the flaws. And I was talking to Talk about this the other day. I'm like, when we are not good with each other, I can point out every single one of your flaws and I can be so angry about it. And like now we're in this like really phenomenal place and I'm like, I can't see any flaws and you're still doing the same shit. Like you still do all those things that I'm like if I was in a bad mood, I'd like, you know, I'd be like resenting it and like, all the things. And then now we're in this good place. Like, I'm like, I don't even remember any of that. I don't give a shit at all. Like, you're so beautiful. Like, I love that you provide for my family. He was providing for the family beforehand. Like all of this stuff. I'm like, oh, and you just look so good. He looked good beforehand as well. But like, I just didn't see it because I was in this angry, like, mood and couldn't get out of my own head about it. So I thought I'd just point that.
Point to make. It's your responsibility to pull yourself out of your shit sometimes and actually take responsibility of that instead of being like, oh, we're just not having, you know, like he's not interested in me or like he's picking at me or he's like whatever it is. Like there is that as well. It's like, well, it is going to be a bit of your responsibility to kind of satisfy your, I don't know, dance at night or something and do something to pull yourself out of a level of funk in motherhood. But since I feel like we could talk about sex and like all of that all day long, something
Natural
that
issues.
I want to just like, this is a sad part of the big family picture that, or a lot of people are struggling with. And I've got a few friends actually, and it breaks my heart that they tell me that they would love a big family, but they can't afford it. And so I feel like there's this belief that a big family breaks the bank in a really big way. And for sure it could. Like if you send all your kids to private schools, you each need a bedroom, you each need a new thing, you each need like all of the things. I imagine on paper that probably looks like really expensive. But I wonder like, is it? Could it not be?
Yeah. How do you, Jinti, find your finances with a bigger family?
You're like, we're dead broke.
What finances? I think digging a debt hole.
This is funny.
We can delete this if it doesn't satisfy having a big family.
No, I feel like my perspective towards money is probably maybe a little different than most people's. I think it's a perspective. And I think it's actually something I've had to really work on in my life because I grew up in a big family and money was a real struggle. And I don't think it's anything about the size of the family because money can be a huge struggle as for a single person. It can be a massive struggle for a one-child family. So it's not about the number of people, but it's about like, for me, I think it's like a mindset and it's also something that needs to be like worked on. It's not just a mindset, but I think that's probably what's more, should the focus be like, what's my relationship like with money? Not like, well, how many kids
how am I going to save for this or spend on it?
And I grew up, my dad was a stay-at-home dad and my mum worked. And so I had this sort of unconscious story that I couldn't rely on a man, I suppose, to earn the like I needed to do that. And I think that served me well at times. But in this stage of my life and just being like, I trust in my partner to provide. It's not on my shoulders. And so for me, like, I suppose it's quite personal to where I'm at in my life, my perspective on it all. But like surrendering the finances to Chris, like I don't know how much money is here or there, like, but I trust that he's got it sorted. And I'm also open myself to earning money and receiving money, but he deals with our finances and I love that.
Yeah. That is such a big piece for me because my mum worked, both my parents worked full time, but my mum was such a go-getter. Like she was like, have the babies and then back to work and like total boss woman. And I don't think it's just how I saw my parents work hard and all of this that conditioned me to think that that you shouldn't rely on anyone else for your finances. I think it was more just the cultural messaging that we were receiving at the time. And so I had this really strong belief like that in a relationship, everything should be 50-50 and that includes the finances. And like, I really had to reevaluate my headspace around that when we got to 3 kids in because it was impossible to work and I couldn't help contribute financially. So, the headspace around it and then relinquishing our finances and relinquishing the bills and everything and putting that in Togger's court. And now that's his responsibility. And then my responsibility is like bringing in the nurturing and looking after the kids and actually making sure our household functions and making sure everyone stays healthy to the best of my ability is like, it's like we've had to divide and for this phase of our lives really take on those traditional gender stereotypical roles because young babies kind of need you to function in that way. Hey guys, we're jumping on today to talk about Kiminami salons. We've had Kiminami on the Road to Wisdom podcast before. She is an incredible guest and a fantastic resource when it comes to increasing your sex drive and your relationship.
When we had Kim on the show, we were both pregnant and she spoke about harnessing your sexual energy and some beautiful skills to have in the basket for birth and postpartum and ultimately making that experience the best it can possibly be and fostering this incredible connection with your partner to have the best birth ever. We will add all of the information and everything you need to know for registration in the show notes of today's episode and we hope you enjoy the course.
Enjoy the Sexy Mama salon.
Being a sexy mama. You can't go wrong.
Sexy mama. It's been a massive unwinding and relearning for me, but I can.
Was that after you read The Empowered Wife?
Absolutely.
Because Keshia, you recommended that. Oh, you spoke about that book to me, and then it came up. This is how I always find books. It's just like it keeps popping up, or a couple of times I'm like, oh, I have to read that, and you got me onto it, and I loved it so much. There was parts of it that I struggled with, but I now, after I listened to it again, I was like, oh, they're the parts I probably actually needed the most. And one of those was just, relinquishing the finances fully. Yeah. And I had in a lot of ways, but that book really helped me just fully let go. And I actually heard someone speaking about making money and stuff like that as a woman, and that it can often feel really good to make money in a feminine way where it's not our responsibility to be providing, but it's just an expression of our creativity and our whatever we're enjoying and loving. And I so feel that as soon as it's like, you've got to put food on the table and I'm like, I'm crumbling. I'm like, no, I don't. It's like crushing to my creativity. I just found that really interesting. I was like, I'm very much want to make money in a feminine way of
doing what you want to do.
Yeah. No, because I feel like, I don't know, I've got a fair ego and it does get a kick out of bringing in some kind of income.
Oh, it's so fun.
It's so fun. But at the same time, in this phase of life, I've really had to just let that go. If it comes, fantastic. But it's right now, my head is so full of just keeping up with the kids' school stuff, keeping up with where everyone's at, what their needs are, what dinner is going to look like for the week, what all of these household things that you would, growing up, you're like, oh, just a mum. But we do everything. And there's so much that goes on behind the scenes to keep a household functioning. So to just let go of money and numbers and finances was it was a huge weight off, and now Togga just focuses on that. And it actually had to be very incremental too, because I'm a control freak and I don't like to just hardcore give up any of my control. So I had to really like work on it. It was like little by little.
What about you, Chloe?
I think. Well, I still do dabble in it, but the finances only because it's just like Brendan is just like, what the fuck is all this shit? And I mean that he is the provider. Like I don't earn any money that's comparable to him, and I would never be like, I'm going to be the, like I feel very comfy and happy that that's the case. And then whatever, like it would be nice. I feel like sometimes it would be nice just to like have money that I earn to just equally waste it on the things
Play money.
Yeah. Like, I want to go waste some money on, like.
What would you waste money on?
What would you waste
spending money at like a full day spa very regularly.
Come here.
Yeah. Like just being like, like we love going out for like really nice, very expensive dinners and just not feeling like we can do that, but it would just, I don't know, there's something about it that just like, I'm just going to go be really like materialistic and buy like heaps of new clothes, or not that I even really value that, but just to waste some money every now and again would just feel
Not
nice.
even waste. I feel like every now and then I really need clothes, and I'm just like, I can't put money towards that right now. Like I feel like the finances, I don't know, if I'm not bringing money in, I like, and this just plays into all of that. Like I'm like, if I can't bring money, like if that money isn't being brought in by me, I can't spend it on even stuff that we need. Or like my kids always need clothes and I'll like always jump on that. But if I need clothes, I'm like, wear them till they're see-through. Like
this is like a bigger topic, I think, on how willing we are to fully nourish ourselves.
Yeah.
And I know we're talking about clothing, but I was just thinking about, I do the same thing sometimes with food, in that like I'll have like really good quality like
Everything
eggs
for
and
the
like and I'm like, well, if I have it, that means the kids won't have it, sort of thing. Like I can be, or like I had some snack stuff that I was like, well, I'd have that out with the kids tomorrow, but I need to eat today and it would be convenient to have some snacks. But my brain's like, oh no, I'll just save it for the kids tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I know we were talking about clothes, but it's sort of the same thing.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, I've said so many times, like, or I'll just get in a bad mood and be like, I don't have any new clothes. Like, I've been postpartum 700 times. I don't have anything that fits me. This is a fucking joke. And Brent would be like, you can just go and spend like however much money is required to satisfy that, and that can no longer be a problem. Like, no. Like, it still is like,
it's like
there's
a block,
hang
isn't
up
it?
about allowing myself to go and spend endless amounts of money. And I'm like, why? But if I earned that, mate, and I would just go happily spend it. But you know what? I bet you I would probably go spend it on Brent and all the kids as well.
Yeah.
Or anybody
100%.
else.
Hit the health food store up.
Hit it
Like
up.
our supplements would be like through the freaking roof if I was bringing in money. We just like the supplements. We just have so many supplements. I don't know why. Just like supplements.
But I feel like this ties into, actually, it's not really, but people always say it's such a privilege to homeschool with you and your big family. And I just like would love to touch on that quickly because like we obviously, well, I'm only recently homeschooling again, and I know you are. And how do you make that work?
I think I don't know anything different. So
Yeah.
making it work, it's like, oh, this is just my life. I've never had an experience of sending the kids to school. So
Yeah.
it's just naturally evolving and unfolding. And I haven't had a lot of structure with it. It's just been free flowing and like very much led by them and where they're at in their life and their interests and just, part of life. But what I am finding now is having our fourth, that I have to bring some more structure in or else just days are just dissolving and flying by. And it works like for the dynamic now. It's actually better just to be a little more organized, a little more structure. So it's sort of, I just let it change and as it needs to. But for me, I think it's just, it reminds me of birth when people are like, how, like, can you just stay at home and birth? And I'm like, it would be terrifying me to go to the hospital. And same with school. I'm like, I struggle sending my kids to school. How am I going to get there on time? Like, we have to pack up every morning. Like, I have to, and then just like little things like that. I'm like, sometimes that seems more challenging to me. There's a deeper reason why, like, I choose to homeschool for sure. But like, it just seems, it's like everything can be a challenge.
Yeah,
you know,
I 100% agree. I feel like life has gotten significantly easier not having to pick my child up from school, take them to school, find a car park, get out, get all the other kids out, walk
That's
them
my day.
in.
That would be a
come
day
back.
to me.
Well, it is because it's like, you know, half an hour to you allow half an hour to get there because of traffic. Then you get out, you're there for another half an hour, you're having a yarn to all the other mums and like wrangling your kids. And then it's like, you know, it's an hour and a half each way of doing the same thing. And in that little minute of time that you get in between is bloody useless when you're on the clock. So
and you've got to put your younger kids in the car
and
as
it's
well.
always nap time. Someone's always fallen asleep on the way there or the way back. It's significantly easier being at home with 5 kids 5 days a week.
See, I disagree with that.
Yeah, but you are like, I don't know. I actually just don't know how you do it. Like, or find that to be easier.
No, we like, because my kids require a certain amount of energy, but also I feel like they have needs now that I can't meet each individual need throughout the day. So holidays, like I do love holidays, and me and Togger have talked about if we were traveling, like if we did a year traveling, we'd obviously homeschool. It would be so easy because we've got new environments, like that new stimulation. Everyone's needs are being met in different ways without us having to be specific about it. But now with them going to school, like I can see that they go and the attention requirements they're receiving that they just wouldn't get at home. I just wouldn't be able to give it to them, especially when we've got babies and stuff in the house. And when I'm home, I'm like, this is where I applaud you guys, because when I'm home, there is so much stuff to do around the house that I don't ever have time to just sit and be with my kids, let alone sit and teach them something or help them along with something. Like I'm at home, I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I'm figuring out the chickens. There'll be some kind of thing that needs my attention. We had mold on a wall the other day and I had to completely pull apart a whole room and scrub that. And there's always something that needs to be done.
And
I just
groundbreaking realization is to know that is homeschool.
I'm like, yeah, that's my but that's what the kids come along.
But
the kids come along and they're actually learning so much from
scrape black mold off the wall.
Well, yes,
not that probably,
maybe not that, but like the chickens, the cooking, the cleaning, the part of schooling is that they actually become involved with that. And that is their job. Like that is what they now do, is you don't do it all. They also do it. Like we're having this massive cleanup at our property the other day and like I taught my kid what an honest day's work is. Like you're going to do this. And they're like, great.
Yeah, as you were speaking, I was like, oh yeah, that's what we do for homeschooling. We do some more sit-down book work and stuff like that. But that's also, I'll do that at breakfast time. Say like if I'm making pancakes or something, I'll be like, oh, do you guys want to get your books out? And they'll sit around in the kitchen and we'll do some of that. And maybe in the afternoon, my eldest will read or something out on the deck and I'll sit there with her and we'll just talk about stuff, or she's, we might write a letter to her pen pal or something like that, just things that flow with the day. But mostly they just come along the whole day. That it's just like full integration. Even this morning breakfast time, like they're all we're making our breakfast together and stuff like that. So there's no separation. But I wonder if it is just like, it can be, particular personalities and stuff like that it's
require more.
Yeah. Because so how my breakfast situation would work is me and Togo are usually in the kitchen getting stuff ready. The kids will come and help set up the table, but then the boys will go off and play and they will that will be their time to play and engage with each other. And usually they're building some incredible thing in their bedroom. Willow will come out. She's usually got some kind of homework. It's Steiner based, so it's not like the homework that you and I probably received, but she'll come and do that on the breakfast, like at the breakfast table. or she'll be tending to rabbits. And then Poet will just be screaming and Willow will help us with her. But then
I think it just is a massive adjustment. Like that's what my kids did when they were going to school. Because it's like, come on, you got your half an hour before school.
Yeah.
And I feel like, but now it's not as like that because there's not an element to leaving or disconnect.
But then, is there not things that you still have to leave the house for?
Yeah, we still leave the house all the time.
Yeah,
but like we're not on the school clock. So like I don't have to, there's no factor of like, oh, I've got to be somewhere all the time, or oh, I can only be there for this time. Like we have that with different things, like because me and Brenton are the only ones home. So like I meet his schedule, he meets mine, but they're the only two things now. Whereas before I had to like meet my own schedule, meet Brenton's schedule, do the pickup thing, and like then the after school things, and like we're on this.
I think if you look at homeschooling from this place of thinking that how we're schooling right now and the schedule that we have is going to be the same, but we're also now homeschooling in that. But it's like the whole schedule is just burn it, put it like that's gone. And then you just build this whole different sort of flow to the day. And but you know, Chris and I are so flexible that he can really be there if I need him there. And I think that's a huge thing to also address, because I think it'd be very different, say, if day in, day out, it was just you didn't feel like you had the support. Say, I'm not referring to your situation at all, but I was just thinking of mothers listening, being like, you know, my partner's working like crazy long hours away from the home, like 6 days a week, say. I remember when I was pregnant with Tashi, so my third baby, Chris was working long hours and away, and I was just like I was really struggling. And so I think that's something to consider as well.
100%,
like,
I said this before, like I feel like even just having 5 children would be drastically different, if not something I would have wanted to do had Brenton not be the type of person he is and have the type of work that he does, because he also is around so often and very flexible. Like I can come and do this, I can do that, I can, you know, like he at the last minute be like, oh, I can go get the kid, or I can take them to the gymnastics, or I can do the skate park, or like whatever it is. So it's kind of like
you're a team.
It is very different to having like, oh, he's not home till 5. I am at my wits. Like, and there are days even when he's home, I'm like, this is just, and it's often when I'm trying to implement a school regime at home, like if someone's not focused or something, I'm like, and trying to do something, and then it's when you try to bring in the school to the home, it is fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
I think.
But then sorry.
So no, you go.
Do you think that and this is genuine curiosity, that they're missing out on something by not having like a daily rhythm? So like, and having like the music component, and like I think of my kids' schooling, they've got like eurythmy, which is the movement, and then a music component, and then there's like obviously play with other kids, which that's easy to do homeschooling, but the quiet time, the needlework, the like all of these different things that they've thought of, which is how I'd want to do homeschooling, which is maybe why I couldn't get my head around homeschooling, because I'd want my kids to be experiencing all of these different elements that when I think about putting that together at home with 5 different ages and the things that just need to be done around the house as well, and then my own work and Togger, they can't disrupt Togger because he's got to work and he works from home. So it's like, there's just so many elements involved where I'm just like.
I think there's a level of flexibility that's required, but also like you still have your own, like I know lots of Steiner homeschool things and I've looked into it, and there's still very much the rhythm of the day and very much still cyclical type of weekly, monthly living. It's just not like by the clock like they would at school. So like, you know, like instead of having needlework, it's like, well, they go to sewing class in Kingscliff, or they're like doing their thing. Like every morning we have breakfast, and then it's this, and then it's this, and then it's quiet time, and then we're out in the sun, it's midday, it's this, it's that. So it's kind of, I think it's just like I think it's the concept of recreating what you're leaving is never
Yeah.
going to work. Like
Yeah.
ever. If I was like 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there, reading, maths, history, like, journaling, like all the things, I would.
She's not quite Steiner. But
I would send my
get what
kids to
your
school.
point.
Yeah, I would 100% be flat on my ass. Like, this is full on.
Yeah.
But again, like, yeah, I think not everybody, and I think that's why people say like, oh, it's all good for you. Like, you're so privileged to be able to homeschool. I think that is what people talk about is like, well, we don't have the privilege of having two parents doing what seems like nothing at home all the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, we don't have those options, or maybe we don't have enough money, or we both have to work. I don't know, like whatever it is.
It's
But
perspective, isn't it?
I think
It's
it is
what you-
literally realizing that you actually do probably have to shake up a lot of the way you live, and your expectations and your personality probably needs to be a bit more flexible, or whatever it is, to be able to achieve that.
Yeah, and I think if you want something, you can't
make it
be the
work.
same person that you were when you didn't have it. Like, you've got to actually change. And sometimes that's like really, you know, if you really want something, then you've got to figure it out, I suppose. But if you don't want it, then like, you know, I'm hearing you speak about Steiner at school. I'm like, oh, that sounds like it works for
Yeah.
you right now.
great.
So
No, I talk about it all the time. Like, there's no way I could like I don't have the desire to homeschool either.
Yeah.
If something happened at we've found a school that really suits us and suits the kids, and everyone's really happy. But obviously, if we were at a school where that wasn't the situation, then homeschool would be more of an option for us.
Aya does like a group Steiner day once a week, and loves it.
Yeah.
Oh, it suits her so amazingly. And she has a day away from us, and she'll probably end up doing 2 days in like a year or two. And yeah, I can see how amazing it is. But I'm like, oh, that works for us. She has 2 days away from us and 5 days
Yeah.
with us. Like, I'm more open to that than 5 days away. That just is. I was like, where is she going? Like, she's gone.
Yeah, yeah.
So young. And because I never actually decided we were homeschooling. I mean, I think Chris was always really interested in homeschooling, like thinking we wouldn't send the kids to school. But until she was actually of school age, and I realized just how young she was and how much she needed me still, I was like, like, there's no way she's going away now.
Yeah,
And now
yeah.
it's just, now we're here and she's 8 now. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Sometimes it is just a natural progression. It's not really a choice that you make.
Yeah.
It would need to be more if you're children in school and you wanted to make the decision to take them out.
100%. Yeah.
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 I like the way you live your life, Jinti. You're just like, yeah, it just kind of happened that way. It's great.
Is that
and I love
bad?
it.
Well, it's just like
just in the moment, I'm like, obviously she wasn't old enough, and so we
it's
just
that
didn't.
simple though. It is. It's that simple. It's having a full awareness and being in alignment and having integrity. Being like, this is the decision that I'm making for my child, for me.
Okay,
for
how
our
does
family?
Can I ask everyone, how do you handle sibling rivalry and keeping the peace at home?
There's nothing like that at my.
I give them sticks and make them harder.
Brenton says, "Get him back" every time someone hurts someone. He's like, "Get him back," and I'm like, and he does it out of like just.
I don't want to discipline them. You
No.
do it for
Is he
me.
being silly, sort of?
Yes.
That's exactly like Chris. And
But
sometimes
it
I'm like,
shits me because someone gets the person back and it just amplifies, triggers me. And it's always at fucking bedtime and I can't stand it. I cannot stand it. Don't do that. Anyone, especially dads. But like dads are annoying, right? They're a little bit annoying. They do the play fighting thing and they do the thing and it's...
they're like... It's like you love it about them, their playfulness and their silliness.
Yeah.
But
And I
then
know it's necessary, but also like, can I be out of the house when it happens? But that doesn't really answer the question. I find it incredibly hard, to be honest. Like my kids fight all the time, but I think it's just natural. I don't know how to intervene it and make it stop because they don't listen.
Okay, Jinti, you grew up with lots of siblings and you have children who have lots of siblings. Go.
my life motto at the moment is like choose your battles. And like I like to just try to be of going into like any conflict with the kids, like I want my energy to be different than theirs. I'm not going down to their level where I'm going to start bickering with them and arguing with them about what's going on, because then I'm just like, well, now I'm here and I'm an 8-year-old fighting with them as well. Like this is just crazy, because that can happen pretty easy. But sometimes I just let them figure it out. And I think a huge thing is the coming back together afterwards. Like they can have it out. I can behave in ways that I wish I didn't as well, or say things or be triggered. But what I think is so important is reconnecting afterwards. And I'm a huge, I love apologizing. Just I'm really sorry I spoke like that. And I think how Chris and I are in our relationship, and it has definitely not always been like that, is just, that coming back together and to mend and apologize and things like that. And I just noticed with the kids, they can have it out. But if I let them and I don't intervene, which often is none of my business, I've seen them so many times come back together and be able to figure it out and to apologize to each other, or just, reconnect. And I'm just like, I love seeing that as well. And living more rurally, I'm like, oh, yes, just have it out, figure it out. When we lived in an apartment and I was so, oh my gosh, everyone, you have to be quiet, right? It was way harder because I was much more aware of them being loud or this or that. Like, what are they going to think of us? And and that's so, I think, common with children, just being like other people's opinions and judgments of it, of how they're behaving and stuff like that. But yeah, I sort of let them go. And also there's nearly always, I find, if I slow down and I don't get caught up in it, be like, oh, don't speak to each other. If I slow down and try to understand what's sort of going on or where a child's at, it nearly always makes sense, their behaviour. It's never completely irrational or anything like that. Often it's like, okay, we need food and we need it ASAP. Let's all come back to this. Let's eat and we'll discuss it later. We'll sort it out later. But otherwise, I find that they haven't been heard, or they're trying to get power back from something that's going on. And so I'm just sort of like, it's always valid in a way as well. And if I take the time to just allow it and understand it, or just be open to what's going on, not just like who's to blame, it can it's an opportunity, I think, for them to be heard and seen and express themselves, and then we get to come back together again. Sometimes the biggest thing with all of this is that's all possible if I look after myself. If I'm not looking after myself, I don't have the capacity to do that for them. So I'm thinking, if I'm really nourished, if I've done what I need to do for me, I can be there for them. But if I haven't done that for me, it's just there's going to be a lot of bickering. There's going to be a lot of arguments, and I'm not going to have the space to handle it.
No, I 100% agree.
I think that's the best answer all day. We can wrap this up. No, no, but that's brilliant. And I also do think that it's such an important part. Like, them bickering is such an important lesson for kids to have about just learning about human emotion. They're little scientists, aren't they? They're constantly trying to find what thing is going to cause what reaction. Can I repeat that study? Am I going to get the same reaction every time? What does sad look like? What does happy look like? What do I feel like when this happens? And it's so important for them to actually experience all of this too. If we go in and save it straight away, then we're taking away their ability to learn and problem solve and resolve things themselves. And therefore, when they're out in the big world, they're going to miss out on a set of skills that they can just develop naturally with each other. And also, it's that idea that there's right and wrong emotions. Anger and sadness and yelling, that's all wrong. But it's okay if we're happy and we're smiling and we're laughing. That's right. And it's just there's all ways that we need to express ourselves. And if we stop sort of labeling things as right and wrong, it gives us space to just get it out sometimes. Because as well, when we do have a pretty free-flowing
day. We don't have, set times to be places, but on certain days we do. The kids go to classes and stuff like that. And I notice like that can be draining, like them rushing out the door. We're getting to places. It's a lot for a little kid sometimes. And I think, they just need to have a cry and get angry sometimes.
Yeah,
I get angry and I need to let it out.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's like with children where, it's wrong for them to do it, or something's wrong
Yeah,
when
yeah.
they do it. And you're like, I feel like that too. I want to rage.
I literally had a tantrum 5 minutes before you saw my child have a tantrum. So look, we all have feelings. We're all human.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
And imagine, they're with each other all the time.
Yeah.
Imagine thinking, then they're fighting. You're like, yeah, if I was with someone all the time, I reckon we'd fight too.
I feel safe to express my feelings with that person I'm with all the time. Thank you.
Yeah, because you can look at it as like siblings are just like the most amazing people to learn how to deal with conflict.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's probably where the world is lacking at the moment with siblings, because we've been conditioned to have less children and have smaller families, and for a plethora of reasons I'm not going to go into right now, but not having so many siblings and everything being calm and quiet because we can just separate the two. And like all of this thing, you miss out on that skill set. You miss out. So yeah, pro big families again, pro big families.
I think that's we've covered every question.
I have a
Have we?
question
Yeah.
for you both, actually, because I've started to notice when I became pregnant with Nala, so my fourth, I remember feeling there was a part of me that was like, how do I explain this? So you were just talking about we're conditioned to have wanting smaller families or not bigger families. And so it can be really easy to cut down a desire to have a big family as if it's like not the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And I think, you guys have 5 kids each. Even now, people, maybe you do want more children. Maybe you don't. It's fine. But just be like, it's okay to own that you want more children. It's not wrong.
Yeah.
And for me, I've been like, I couldn't possibly, imagine having 5. That's a bit crazy. And I've noticed myself saying that, it's a bit crazy sort of thing. And I'm like, is it?
No.
I
Especially
can
once you hit
100%
4.
relate to this. And I think if I've had this thought many times before, I thought after I had him for sure, I would feel like, I would get that feeling, that sensation, or like you talk about like 100% done.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I actually could have another baby, but I always think to myself in my head, oh my God, imagine what people would think. Like we've got family members who have been like, we're leaving, or like you're on your own. Not that we have, like it's an exaggeration, and it's probably with absolute, just to be jokey. But at the same time, like there's so much judgment behind that, and so much it's just autopilot judgment, I think, as well. Like it's not actually rooted in like how people actually feel, but there is like oh God, well, society would really judge me, or like people would actually just know me as Chloe, the person with 6 kids, and that's it.
You're a breeder.
Yeah, and there is such a negative connotation about it. But I agree with you. I always think about like, I actually could have another baby easily.
I don't feel that way about having another baby. No, but like I actually don't really care about other people's judgments. To my detriment, maybe. But I do. I'm like, that's not the reason I feel done with having babies. My body just feels like I feel drained, and I don't think I could replenish myself enough to give again. But in terms of having a big family, like I could have so many kids. Then I think the only blocks that I would put in there is that we also love traveling and don't want to stop doing that. And I think that's the only time like finances come into it for me. I'm like, another plane ticket costs a lot of money. Like that's a big outlay straight away. But like, apart from that, I don't know. Like I'm like, my kids have friends over all the time. Like, I'm just like, yeah, bring it on. Like, bring more kids. Like, I love having that busyness and multiple personalities, and even within the one person, like, just, I don't know, that the fullness that a big family brings is so rewarding, and I love it. And it feels very home for me, because my mum was very much the same. Like, our house was so open to all of our friends coming over, and there was always heaps of kids in the house, and like, yeah, it's good. I don't know. It's
I'm glad
really
you
good.
brought that up.
Yeah, there's like
I've thought about it so often. Like, I would be so judged if I even admitted that I could have another child.
Yeah, and I had this conditioning, like this autopilot response that I've started questioning, where I'm like, oh, it would be crazy, or like, oh, I couldn't do that. That would be too far. And you're like,
No.
why?
Yeah.
Why? Is that even true? Do I even believe that? Where did I get that from? Because
I think it's just car sizes.
True.
Car
There's a
sizes
logistic
really, like,
to
there's
it,
like a
of
logistics
course.
to it as well. Like, you get to a point where you're like, okay, if we, like, now we fill every seat in the minivan. I'm like, and we can't take like other people's kids anywhere, which I don't know why that's a thing for me. I'm like, I should be able to take friends as well when we go and do stuff. But anyway,
I can't wait to see your next car then.
I know, it's like we're literally getting a bus. But yeah, then like the logistics of that, like when we go traveling, it's like trying to get a 7-seater car when you're over in Italy is like nearly impossible / quite expensive. So yeah, things like that comes into it a little bit. But I don't know, if we did have another kid, we'd just figure it out too. Like, it's not that
You would figure it
wouldn't
out.
hinder any, like, we'd just make it happen. It would just be more difficult, but we'd make it happen.
We've done some pretty whack traveling with all of our kids.
Oh, just some whack traveling. We're going to do some more. I can't wait.
We'll be doing plenty more of it.
It's going to be great. I actually love the attention you get at being a big family traveling. Like, it's so good. Like, like when we went to Italy and we just had the 4, like, people like, quattro, like every time we'd like pass people, they'd be like, quattro, and me and Tucker would just like go to ourselves like, yeah, 4, man, 4. It was so good. And it like, yeah, it's such a great novelty, because they're definitely lacking in children over in Italy. Like the nonnas and nonnos, yeah, they're like, when like 0 grandchildren, and just like, where are the kids? Like they like hunt you down, and we would like get congratulated, and like it was a proper thing. Like people were like, oh my God, you have 4 kids, like this is amazing. And like we'd have like a nonna with their daughter, and they'd come up to us and she'd be translating, and like this nonna would be like going off in Italian way too fast for me and Toga to like grasp a word, but like quattro we get.
Are you Italian?
No. Toga's like ancestry, like way back is, but we just love Italy.
Oh my God, you talking about it, I'm like, yeah.
Yes.
You're meant to live there.
Oh.
Can I come visit?
Yes. We will just have all of our crazy kids. Like, seriously, let's do it. I'm still keen on my year. We've delayed it for a year, but we're going to do a year over there. I'm so excited.
Oh, wow, you are. Yeah, as you were talking about it, I'm like, you should. I feel like that's your place.
I do believe we've covered everything then. Now?
I'm sure there's plenty more, but we're all just like, someone's feeding us, right? We've got our people dropping food off, right? We've got those meal service people.
We have Jinti. Jinti's brain seems pretty fresh. You've been on fire today, Jinti.
Yeah. I've got lactation brownies for us all.
I've got chicken soup. It's going to be we can have a feast. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Jinti, for coming in, hanging out. We get to meet Nala. We really quick anecdote, if you haven't listened to our previous episode with Jinti, we were actually talking about little spirit children and bringing them in, because I think me and Chloe were just pregnant and not knowing yet.
You realised that morning.
Yeah, I was like, yeah. So it was, and then we called in another little spirit child, and here we are with said spirit children. So
actually, that's pretty crazy that we were all chatting last time, and now we're all back chatting with our little babies.
With our babies' arms. It's very nice. All right. And if people want to find you, Jinti, do you want to let them know where to go?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. Maybe you can link it or something, but it's just my name, Jinti _Fell at Instagram.
Amazing. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Road to Wisdom podcast. To join the journey, you can follow us on Instagram at theroadtowisdom.podcast and at www.theroadtowisdompodcast.com. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. We look forward to seeing you next week with more juicy content.